Hello everybody and welcome to today's session. So this session is really something quite different. I want to talk to you about not just content. I'm not going to give you content to write down and take away. As a team, we want to inspire you to think differently about the context in which events live. So if we were going to give you content, I would give you steps of things you must do. So let's use another example. I could give you content on how to be really healthy in your life. It would be eat good food, run around a lot, step-by-step things to do. But those things might not all be useful for you. What this session is about giving you context for the future of the global event industry. So what do I mean by context? It's really about the air that we breathe, the way we operate in the event industry. Think of how health and safety happens in your events. Health and safety doesn't happen if you've got enough time, enough budget, if you know someone that knows a bit about it. Health and safety is there from the start of your event right through to the end of your event. And all that you're going to hear today is about changing the context in which we plan, manage, and deliver events so they reflect what our future world needs from us. So it's my job today to help set that context for you, and I'll be coming back at the end to let you answer questions and to deal with your questions. So on the IBTM app, you can put your questions in, look for the Slido information within the app. These are the Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These are our opportunity as an industry to be, one, creative, but two, these are the business case for our industry. These goals are a roadmap for the world working for everybody. They are what global governments are working towards, what every corporate company is working towards, and they can only happen by people coming together to collaborate, innovate, and share ideas. That's what we do as an industry. So all of our future work is about bringing people together to meet these sustainable development goals. And they cover everything, not just environmental, climate change, but also equal opportunities around gender equality and accessibility. These are the roadmap for our future. These will be the water that we swim in within the event industry, so to speak. We've created a white paper, which you can all get access to. If you go to the bit.ly link here, you can register to receive the white paper. The white paper isn't finished because tomorrow there will be a private session where we're gathering more input from certain stakeholders. But this white paper gives you more to read about the changing context of events. The future of events is actually here now. Already it's very clear that young people around the world expect something different in their future. They expect a different way to connect and to collaborate. And the white paper will tell you more about that and what that means practically within the global event industry. Another initiative that we're going to be launching very soon is in relation to sustainable reporting, and my colleague Kaylee is going to tell you more about that later. And actually, Kaylee, you might want to come back to these slides at that point. If we're going to be communicating about the importance of the global event industry in meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, it is essential that we're telling the world about it and reporting about it. Kaylee's going to tell you about an initiative that we, Positive Impact Events, did, which was submitting to the United Nations an idea that events be used to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We went through over 200 corporate reports corporate sustainability reports to find out if they were reporting on events, and not a single corporate sustainability report mentioned events. So one takeaway for you is to think about how you can start reporting on meeting the Sustainable Development Goals through your events. There's a small sustainability reporting portal that will be available for you, and these slides introduce to you what that portal looks like. So you'll be able to register your report. It will show where you are geographically, and you'll be able to upload your reports onto this document. So Positive Impact Events exists to create a sustainable event industry. We are a not-for-profit, and we go out and we find our funding from all sorts of places, and we kind of cause a bit of trouble within the event industry because we challenge the way the event industry operates to align towards the Sustainable Development Goals. This is a picture from New York in September, and it shows the Sustainable Development Goals on the screen in Times Square. And to introduce more about the Sustainable Development Goals, I'm going to introduce you to Hannah from the UN SDG Action Campaign.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Hannah Messenger. My name's Hannah Messenger, and I'm the Global Events Strategist of the UN SDG Action Campaign. So I'm here just to talk to you a little bit more about the context that Fiona was mentioning in her opening there. So the SDG Action Campaign is a special initiative of the Secretary General of the United Nations, and the mandate of our team is to scale up, broaden and sustain the global movement taking action towards the goals. So the important thing that I really want to open this with is to make it clear to everybody that although these goals were agreed and gavelled in and they're convened by the United Nations, they are not the UN's goals. They are the goals of every government, of every sector, of every citizen, every individual on this planet. And together they offer us a roadmap, as Fiona mentioned, towards a peaceful, prosperous world for every person in every section of society. So the important thing to know about the goals is that this is a revolutionary approach to work out how together we can live in a world where we fit within the bounds of our environmental planetary bounds and everybody can prosper together. So what we do at the SDG Action Campaign is we look at engaging different sectors, different disciplines, people from all over the world, from the UN system, from civil society, activists, media, creative industries, and we provide a platform for them to bring together the tools that they've found are working in their sectors to help further and advance the goals. We know that we cannot achieve this agenda if we don't have every single mind, discipline and ideas coming to the table. So there's a few key opportunities that we create to provide that platform. And this is an area where we really could be hearing a lot more from the event industry. So one of our flagship moments is the Global Festival of Action for the SDGs. And we actually open up a call to the global community, anybody that's interested, to come and run a workshop and share what they're doing to shape sustainable practices in their own fields and industries. We then want to celebrate all of the latest activists, change makers, people making real strides. We have an awards program that does that. And then each year in September, world leaders gather in New York at the UN General Assembly. And as part of that, we host a dedicated space called the SDG Action Zone. And this is actually held in the Rose Garden of the United Nations headquarters in New York. And this provides the opportunity for external actors that do not work in politics, that do not work in the UN, to come inside the UN building and share what they're doing in their industries. Now, the reason that I'm sharing this with you is to tell you all that this is relevant to the events industry as well. At the SDG Action Zone this September, we had 60 events, 300 speakers. I can give you all the statistics, but that's not hugely interesting to you right now. The interesting thing is that we had different sectors coming together to share what they're doing and making their commitments. So we had the sports industry, we had leaders from ESPN and NBC and these big basketball players coming together to say what their commitment to achieving the goals is. We had B Corp organizations, which is an organization that looks to shift the culture of business from revenue generation to revenue generation whilst increasing good for the world. We know that there is no option for us to change the way that we're doing things. We have 10 years left to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and it's no longer a nice to have. This is the only way, if we all work together, that we're going to be able to create a future where everybody prospers. So what we're looking to do is really draw out these success stories from different sectors. One idea that could be happening in one country in the world could be taken, and if you participate with us in any of these kind of platforms that we're hosting, share the skills that you're learning or the ideas that you have. You don't know if somebody on the other side of the planet working in a completely different sector could use that. So the one example that I would use for you is the US race to space in the 1960s. And for the race to space, I bet when somebody first said, right, we're going to go to the moon, somebody said, well, we don't know how to do that. And somehow they managed to get every single sector together, all these different minds working across different technologies, working in different kind of engineering, working in signals, working in, I don't even know what went into the race to space, but somehow they put a man on the moon. Now, if we employed that same energy and enthusiasm and cross-contamination of ideas and disciplines, then we can achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We know how massive the events industry is and how critical it is to convening and bringing different people together. So this is my plea, really, for the events industry to get on board and help us really deliver over the next 10 years. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Kaylee to tell you a little bit more about positive impact.
Hi, so I'm Kaylee, I work at Positive Impact, and I want to tell you about this Acceleration Action Initiative we submitted to the UN in September this year. So like Hannah was saying, at this summit, they offered the opportunity for heads of state, global businesses, but also industry to submit kind of how we're going to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. And when we saw this, we thought this is the perfect opportunity for the event industry to be at the table with high-level global organizations like the UN saying, look, the event industry is vital to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, look how many people are in this room. Look how many people are at IBTM. When people meet, that's when we change things. So this is why we submitted the Acceleration Action. So our acceleration action had 4 deliverables. One was to show that the event industry is crucial in achieving indicator 4.7. So SDG 4 is quality education. 4.7 is making sure school children and university students have the education they need to prosper in the world and about sustainable development. So we thought, well, education doesn't stop at school. It doesn't stop at university. We can all learn. And the event industry is such a good place where we can continue to be educated about sustainable development. So that was our first deliverable. Our second deliverable is resources. We want to provide collaboration opportunities, resources, and best practice sharing so that people have these resources to go out into the industry and to work towards the Sustainable Development Goals. So some of the resources that we are working on is things like the circular economy with GES and human rights with UNICEF. And the third deliverable was reporting. So like Fiona was saying, we audited 200 corporate sustainability reports. None of them mention the impact of their events. How can you work towards something if you don't even know where to start? So our third deliverable was to get 200 corporations to start reporting on the impact of their events so we can work towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And our last deliverable was making sure 100,000 people made sustainability commitments on our My World survey, which I'll pass over to Guyan to tell you more about the survey that we created.
Hello everyone, my name is Gayan Piris. I'm the digital strategist of the UN SDG Action Campaign, a colleague of Hannah. So survey is one of the tools. Obviously with any survey you get the data about the sustainable development goals, but this survey is designed as a multi-purpose tool for you to start somewhere, for you to do advocacy on the goals. The first question of the survey is actually, are you aware about the goals? And the second question asks, which 6 of the 17 goals are most important to you and to your industry? Now, why 6? Because we want you to start thinking about interconnectivity between goals. For example, if you say, I'm committing to pay a fair wage, then it is obviously connected to goal number 1, which is no poverty, but also that is connected to goal number 10, which is reducing inequalities. And the visualization you see here are from we managed to get, within a very short period of time, 7,000 commitments from people on the survey, and we partnered with Positive Impact Events to do that. What you see here is what people think are most important to them in their industry. And this is a survey that you can take with you back to your organizations and get simple commitments from people. This gets people thinking, simple things like donating food waste, or giving opportunities to young people through internships. So this gets people thinking about how sustainable development goals are related to your day-to-day activities. And the survey, the URL of the survey is available, and you can take this to your organizations. We will be around, and after this session, you can come and meet us and get the URL for the survey. With this, I'll hand over to Thomas from IATA.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Thomas Röttger from IATA, the International Air Transport Association. Why IATA, why aviation on this event here? I mean, we talk a lot about making events sustainable, but many people are concerned about flying to an event being actually the most unsustainable part of the whole action. And IATA is committed to making aviation more sustainable, and especially in the times of flight shame, there are quite a number of messages to make the flying public understand that the impact is actually not as bad as you might think. Aviation has always been a high-tech industry, so a lot of efforts all over the history of aviation has been spent to improve aircraft technology, efficiency, the way that aircraft are operated, and also to improve airport and airspace infrastructure to make aviation more efficient. And actually, if you look at the CO2 emissions of a flight today and compare it to what it was around 30 years ago, it has been reduced by half, and this movement is continuing. The efforts to make aviation more sustainable are really visible, and as we are talking here about reporting and measuring, they are measurable. And actually, I would like to ask you a question. Amongst all man-made CO2, how much do you think is coming from aviation? How many percent of man-made CO2 are coming from aviation? How much? 5%. Who says more, who says less? 2? Sorry? More, okay. Well, it's 2%, not more. So that's already something that many people don't know. But of course, the aviation industry has said, even if it's only 2%, we have to contribute our share in global emissions reduction. And already in 2009, in the forerun to the Copenhagen UN Climate Conference, all worldwide aviation associations, so from IATA for the airlines and the associations of aircraft manufacturers and airports and air traffic control organizations have come together and decided on 3 high-level goals. So the first one in the short term, that's what is currently running, is to improve the fuel efficiency of flights by 1.5% in average until 2020. So we are almost done with that one, and we are visibly exceeding it. The next one is to stabilize the net aviation CO2 emissions at the level of 2020. So that's the so-called carbon neutral growth. And that obviously can, with a growing air traffic, cannot be solved with technical means only, but so market-based measures like emissions trading and carbon offsets are contributing to that. And then in the long term, by 2050, the entire carbon footprint of aviation, still considering growth, will be divided by 50% relative to 2005. So how can we reach these goals? It's a multi-pronged strategy. So technology, of course, improvements in aircraft, and even going to revolutionary new aircraft, including electric ones for short-haul flights. That's a main pillar, improving the infrastructure of airports and airspace using sustainable fuels, biofuels, synthetic fuels, and in the long term things like hydrogen and electricity, and improving the operations, and also using market-based measures like the offset scheme. So with the UN organization for civil aviation, ICAO, there is now a carbon offset scheme called CORSIA, Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation, which copes with the growing emissions, which is actually complementary to the Paris Agreement for the part of aviation that is international and not under single states responsibility. And finally, and that's especially interesting for the events industry, is the voluntary offset programs for passengers. So that can be individual passengers, that can also be corporate organizations that want to offset the impact of their business travel. And of course, this is also a chance for events organizers to either do it themselves or offer it to the participants to actually take a small amount of money and put it into projects in other areas that help reduce the emissions of CO2. That can be sustainable power generations, all the famous trees that are planted. But it's just one example amongst many. It's of course very important that these projects are under strict supervision of good standard organizations, or to be sure that it contributes to not only to a reliable CO2 reduction, but also to other sustainability goals, giving social and economic benefits. And many airlines offer these voluntary offset programs, and IATA also has an own one that helps to this. And I'm handing over to Gail.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gail Murphy, and I'm the CEO of Global Green Events and one of the Positive Impact Ambassadors, which you can see our beautiful map up here. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story. So about 17 years ago, I was happily a project manager and event manager in the MICE industry, traveling around the world and making lots of impact in multiple ways, as you can imagine. And about 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to stop doing that and focus purely on sustainability. So I started going out there and doing change and making change, working with event organizers, working with umbrella organizers, asking them to do things in a better way and helping support them and coach them. And I felt a little bit like I was the only person in the world doing this. Now, I don't know if any of you are sustainability ambassadors out there, but when you're out there, especially if you're working in a destination or you're working in an environment where you feel like you're the only one ambassadoring this, it can be a lonely journey. And over these 10 years building my business and speaking to clients, sometimes I would come up against obstacles or challenges, tricky suppliers, or navigating a whole group of 3,000 people that can't separate properly with their recycling, you know, these kind of small challenges that over time feel like you're battling a lot. And there's a lot of flows through this. And then what happened is I decided to kind of be like, okay, I really want to do this, but I want to meet other people that are doing the same thing. I want to feel like I'm part of something else. So I started looking around to see who else was doing this, who else was passionate about this. I found other people. I came to these beautiful networking events that we have that are specifically for this. I found Positive Impact, and I went on the website and look at them all. It wasn't just me. It was a whole bunch of us all doing good and all trying to make change. So what did it give me to become an ambassador? So now I feel like I have support. I have access to knowledge. Here we are all together learning about different impacts. I didn't even know it was only 2% with the aviation industry. The plastics industry is nearly 20% of the carbon budget. So, wow, where are our impacts focused, you know? It gives me a sense of belonging and a sense of strength. So then when I feel like I can't go on, I just feel like actually there's a whole bunch of us that are still going for this. Let's just ride through it. Gives me the inspiration and motivation. I find out what other people are doing. I come here and I get asked to speak and talk about my story to inspire others to do the same. And it gives me opportunities where I can network, find new clients, find new buyers, find new suppliers that I can network people together with. So why is it important for us as an industry? So right now we're really in a stage where we need to shift from competition to collaboration. As an industry, we're in a real risk, long-term sustainability, when it's not just about recycling, it's not just about reducing your carbon footprint, it's about our industry as a whole being long-term sustainable. When things are becoming more limited, budgets are becoming more limited, resources are becoming more limited, how do we sustain? How do we still thrive? How do we still bring people together so we can celebrate and we can share knowledge? It also gives us support and a place to succeed. So if we all communicate and work together, it means we find a niche. So now even my business model these last couple of years has changed because I've met other people in the industry doing the same thing. It's like, well, why do I need to reinvent the wheel and do the same thing? Now we have multiple certifications. How do we come together to say this certification's for this certification's for this, to give the industry professionals real clarity on how to move forward? How do we implement? Who do we speak to for specific skills or understanding? And it gives us solidarity. So as a community, as an industry, we can come together and we can make this change together. It also increases our innovation. So there's lots of people in this room that have awesome skills that I don't have. So if we come together, we're maximizing all of that and really enhancing our long-term sustainability as an industry together. So there's an inclusion model by Deloitte which speaks about the power of collaboration, the power of us coming together. And it increases feelings of inclusion, so the good feels that we like, this feeling around value and respect and belonging, increases those by 70% as an individual. That's pretty cool, right? Then as a collective, it gives a 17% increase in our performance. 17%. Imagine if all of us as an industry were performing 17% better. Imagine if all of your employees feel like that. And 20% increase in decision-making quality. And 29% in team collaboration. Some great statistics and a great reason why we should all come together and support each other. So what can you do? So one, you can join us on the map by becoming a Positive Impact Ambassador. Through this, you'll also experience and receive lots of resources, lots of connections. You'll find out about events that are running. There's lots and lots of information you get through that. You can inspire others yourself by hashtagging Share a Positive Impact. So whenever you're doing an initiative, you're doing something cool, share about it to inspire other people to do the same thing. You can undertake the survey that Guyan was speaking about. So we start creating as an industry commitments and actual real tangible actions that prove that we are an industry that actually cares, that we should last. And spread the word. Spread the word to everybody you speak to about the importance of sustainability in our industry. And I'd just like to close with my favourite quote. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much, by Helen Keller. Thank you very much. I hand back to Fiona.
Fantastic. So today's session is all about future trends. And what I hope you're really taking from this is that the future is here. Outside of our industry, the future is all looking through the lens of the Sustainable Development Goals. And Hannah really brought that to life very clearly for us. Sometimes in our industry, we get stopped because we're all traveling and we think that the carbon offsetting is the barrier that we can't overcome. So I hope that Thomas's presentation made you aware that work is being done around that. IATA is doing things to make that easy, and we should all learn from them because they're measuring and they have set targets in a way that we haven't yet as an industry. We heard from Kaylee about the work that Positive Impact Events is doing to raise the profile of our industry at the United Nations level so that everyone around the world understands how vital events are in bringing people together to create the solutions for the future. And then we heard from Guyan, who shared about a survey that the UN are leading on, which the event industry now has its own survey linked to, which is absolutely amazing. And then we heard about the 7,000 commitments to action that were gathered in just 1 month. So we've now got time for your questions, but before we open the floor for that, I just want you to all know that as a collective team, Positive Impact Events and our friends that were here with us, we know this isn't easy, and we know that there's a lot of challenges that you're facing, challenges of time and challenges of budget. And I think Gail really pulled this together fantastically when she said that together we can really make a difference. So Positive Impact Events exists to help you be able to come together to make those differences. But it means nothing unless all of you are taking the small actions to change. So what questions have you got that we can now answer for you about the future of the event industry? You can either go into your app, the Slido app. Great. Okay, hang on. So the question, what's the most impactful thing that we can do as event planners to minimize the environmental impact of our events? So first of all, I want to point to the fact that in that question, we're talking about the environmental impact of our events. So the first thing I want us to all to think about is there's more than just the environmental impact of our events. There's also the social impact, the economical impact. So take some time to look at the Sustainable Development Goals and see that it's more than just environment. The most impactful thing we can do is start measuring the impact. And now you're going to say, what do I measure? Well, you measure whatever is relevant for your event. So each of you are involved in totally different events, totally different countries. Some of you may need to use plastic water bottles at your event because tap water can't be drunk. So you could measure how many plastic water bottles were used and how many you recycled. Some of you may know that food waste is something that you could address, so you could measure your food waste. Some of you may know that you're inviting lots of young people to your events to learn from the event, so you could measure the number of young people. It's all about measuring and then telling that story, and I challenge you all to measure the things that you think you're the worst at, because this will get you ready for the challenges in the future as the Sustainable Development Goals become more important. And the next one, there was another question, I think. The technology. Does anyone want to shout out a question? Okay, what was the question? How do we support the cause, as in the cause for a sustainable event industry? Well, become an ambassador, please. So one of the key things we work on for our ambassador community is to give you materials to be able to talk about within your local communities. So it could be the people in your workplace, it could be your clients, it could be your supply chain. A few times a year we will send you a PowerPoint, and we will send you a recording of the PowerPoint, and we will send you an example agenda, and we will send you links to other reports, so that you don't need to become sustainability experts, but you're able to engage with your communities on this topic. It would be quite ridiculous if we expected all of you to become sustainability experts. And here's the secret to that. No one's a sustainability expert. No one especially is a sustainable event sustainability expert, because every single event we do is different. So supporting the cause is, yes, join our ambassador community, but the second thing you can do is take on an attitude of discovery rather than an attitude of knowledge. So what do I mean by that? If you're looking to discover something, you're curious and you're going to try new things. If you're looking to get it right, to have the right answer, you're going to be looking for someone to tell you what the right answer is. And there is no right answer. So the one thing you can do to support the cause is be curious and take on that attitude of discovery. Is there a specific sustainability index or label that you could recommend? There are loads and loads and loads coming out from all the different associations, and that's excellent because it will move our industry forward. The one label or standard I will always recommend is the standard that people outside of our industry would understand, and that is the ISO 2012-1. So if we went to the Smart Cities event that's happening just down the road, and if we said our industry has a standard, it's called ISO 2012-1, that's a special term, ISO, that they would understand, and they would therefore take our industry seriously. If we said to any of them, hey, we have an association and it has this label, or we have a country that has that label, they'd probably go, okay, but not understand what it was. So I think we have an opportunity as an industry to speak the language of business with the ISO standard, and taking any action is good. Is that question, do I know of a European events agency that have expertise in organising eco-friendly events? I think right now every single one of them should be doing this. And I think every single one of them would be able to tell you that they have some expertise. I don't think it's a case anymore of one company that specializes just in it. This is now like health and safety. Every single company should be doing it. If you're looking for an events agency and you ask them to demonstrate sustainability, that is fantastic, because you are their client and they will change their behavior to do so. I will say over the past few months, I've been inundated by emails from agencies around the world saying, how do we implement sustainability? And the question I have said back to all of them is, how much time are you putting aside to this, and how much budget are you putting aside for this? And then I'll talk to you. And not for them to give me the budget, but just that they are seriously taking it. The majority of them say, well, we haven't decided yet, we need to think about it. And then I say, there's loads of resources out there, go and read them all, and then when you've decided and you really want input on something different, then come back. And this is the place that most of the agencies I think are at now, which you as clients can help change. They're all wanting to implement it for you, that one client, but they're not always doing it every day. So they're wanting to respond to one client, whereas they should be changing their whole internal culture. So any agencies in the room, that's the takeaway: change your whole internal culture. Anyone who employs agencies in the room, please ask them to measure and share with you their input. So I'll do the IBTM one. So in what areas has IBTM become more sustainable compared to 2017 when lots of plastic was used? Can we use it as a case study? Anything could be used as a case study. So let's take IBTM. Well, IBTM, like all of our events, will rely on the supply chain. So that's the supply chain of the Fira Barcelona, Barcelona as a destination, all of the partners that create all of the stands and the materials. So as our industry starts asking more and more for sustainable stand materials, it will be easier for people like IBTM to find those materials. Some of the work that Kaylee mentioned we're doing is with GES. So many of you may know GES, they produce a lot of stands, and they've said we need help to work with experts outside of our industry on what materials we can use so that better materials are used within our industry. So yes, IBTM is improving every year in the same way that every single event is improving because the supply chain is changing. Can it be better? Yes, like every single event can be better. How does that happen? By us as the customer asking for change to happen. And the point about the case study that I think is really interesting is it would be amazing to have more examples of bad case studies in our industry. We did a session this morning with the press, talking to the press about how to speak about sustainability and really moving away from just featuring the best convention center did this or the best caterer did that, and moving into being curious about what was measured, what was reported, what was difficult and what was easy. More of that attitude of discovery. Okay, I'll answer the ISO question quickly. Is it specific to an individual event or can you scale it to a region or a country? The great thing is you can choose your scope for ISO 20012-1. So your scope might be one event. It might be every event that happens in Barcelona, every event that happens in this destination. You can scale it up or keep it small. A list of global resources or organizations to tap into if we're doing an event in a new country to learn about existing practices or barriers for that community. Definitely start with the destination and ask the destination to help you. There is no one portal for this, and I hope there never will be, because sustainability and working in a sustainable way should become the norm for every single business. Again, if you're planning events, the power that you have in being able to ask the question of your supply chain, can you provide this in a sustainable way, is huge. So if you can ask your normal suppliers, if you can ask any suppliers you come across, the more that they hear it from you, the client, the more that they will be changing. And also don't worry about perfection. There is no such thing for that. I think Hannah mentioned very clearly the story of getting to the moon. That's what we're trying to do with implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. We don't know how to get there. We don't know how to do a fully sustainable event, and it will only happen by all of you trying something new. And then the last question, how to explain to corporate clients not to produce waste through our services. Banners, invitations, badges are all mainly useless. Yes, so who's going to innovate something new around that? And all of you can have that conversation with your clients of, have you thought about it this way? That conversation of discovery, not the, dear client, this is going to produce this much waste and you're bad, but the conversation of what could we do that's different that will make a difference here? And how can we take the waste materials and use them afterwards as well? So if we can go back to my slides, because I want to finish off with one slide. I'm sure listening to my answers to those questions has probably been frustrating for many of you, because I've not given you a right, wrong, knowledgeable piece of information. And I really hope that I haven't, because I want to leave you all in this sense of discovery. It's not down to somebody to tell you what to do to be ready for the future of the event industry. It's about a new mindset, a new culture, a new context for you to all be discovering how to deliver your events in a way that meets the Sustainable Development Goals. I want to draw your attention to two things to finish with. One is the UN 75 years. So next year is 75 years of the United Nations. Their campaign is all about the importance of a global conversation and people coming together and collaborating. Well, that's exactly what our industry does. So next year is an opportunity for us as an industry to say, we collaborate, we bring people together, we make the world work. And that's an excuse and an opportunity for you to try and embed the Sustainable Development Goals in everything you do. In your kickoff meeting for your event, ask the question, have we thought about the Sustainable Development Goals? In going through managing your event, ask the question, are we reporting or measuring any of this? You may feel like you don't know what you're doing, and that is okay. There's no such thing as knowing the right thing to do. So then finally, please download our white paper, which will be ready in the next few weeks. That will include a link to the My World survey and information on how to become part of an ambassador program. And please continue to keep up the good work of creating a sustainable event industry. You've all got the potential to make a big difference. So thank you.